But I want to talk about Quin Snyder going to the Los Angeles Lakers because there is some thought that Quin Snyder is a candidate in Los Angeles to replace Frank Vogel if he gets whacked
Whacked.
after what has been nothing short of a disastrous season for the Lakers. And I guess the question is, how good is the Laker job? Because I think we all know that the Utah Jazz job is pretty good. At the moment, you're probably limited in that you can't win a championship with the way this organization is set up right now. So there is a ceiling perceivably, right? But perceived ceiling. But the question is the Laker job better than the Utah Jazz job, Jake? Would you rather have one versus the other?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think if you just go straight up, like on paper, nameplate for nameplate, I think most people are going to take the Laker job. But I think the Laker job comes with a lot of challenges. I mean, first and foremost, number one, is LeBron James there when you take the job? I mean, how long is he going to be there? Like, what does that dynamic look like? Because again, when LeBron is in your organization, it's Le GM, right? I mean, that's what we all know and love.
Le GM.
Yeah, Le GM. So, I think that LeBron is not easy to coach, I don't think, but that's just the first thing you have to consider. Secondly, I think the reason that the Laker job is still attractive because it's much like the USC situation before Lincoln Riley went ahead and took over there. It's kind of this situation where next season the Lakers could be a title contender. It's not like you got to wait 5 years and everything to be relevant. So I think the Laker job from that standpoint is very attractive. Now, the downside to that is that the Laker job comes with a lot of pressure. There are expectations. And when you sign a bunch of talent and it doesn't work out, you're the guy who's responsible. So I think that's the tough part about it. So it's kind of this thing as a coach where you got to ask yourself, am I willing to only be somewhere for one season and we're in the worst case scenario? Because that's the worst case scenario. You pick up the job one season and you're out because it goes so poorly. That's the worst case. Best case is you're there for like 10 years and you win a bunch of rings. I think that's worth the risk. Now, with the Jazz, it's kind of the opposite. It's kind of what you were talking about. Hey, you can't win a championship right now. You're a bit limited with the talent because you're not the Lakers. You're not the Celtics, let's say, or a nameplate that can just go and get whoever they want. There's some antics at play. There's some cultural things that go on in the league that kind of prevent you from getting the best talent in the league. So with that in mind, your trade-off with that sacrifice is that you have long-term stability. You're Quin Snyder. You've been coaching the Jazz for 9 or 10 seasons now, and you've been getting paid and making that generational money. So I think it really depends. To answer the question, it really depends on where you're at in your coaching career. For Quin Snyder, I think he's made his money now, and I think now it's time for him to chase a championship. And so for me, I'm not sitting here saying that Quinn is head over heels for the Lakers job or that is even a possibility at this point. But what I am saying is if I put myself in Quinn's shoes, I have to think at some point the guy wants to chase a championship. And I think on some level, he'll never admit it, but on some level, he's got to realize that this roster is not good enough to win a championship right now. So it's kind of this balance that you have to play depending on where you're at in your career and how damn much you want to win a championship for just simply making money, So that's so I guess when you head up with all that considered, I probably lean towards the Jazz job, but winning championships is why you play the game. So I think it just depends who you are.
Yeah, and I think the hardest part is what do you value? If I'm Quin Snyder, I don't value the Laker job. And I talked to, one of the guys I know over at the Jazz yesterday, and he straight up said that there was an audible laugh when it was brought up that Quin Snyder would want to leave the Jazz for the Lakers because Quinn craves stability. Quinn craves professionalism, and that is something that's been very difficult to deal with this year, the lack of both in Los Angeles. And I'm told that Quin Snyder currently does not value that job. And that the Utah Jazz would not allow Quin Snyder out of his contract to go coach the Lakers. He's got 2 years plus an option left on that deal. And it doesn't make a lot of sense for the Utah Jazz to let him walk away to go to Los Angeles. I mean, he has a good working relationship with Ryan Smith, the owner of the Utah Jazz. Quinn also happens to get along pretty well with his players who clearly like and respect him. There would not be a reason for Quinn to leave a really stable situation with the Utah Jazz to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And I think rightly, the Utah Jazz would not allow him to make that move. Now, if Quinn, and I'm told Ryan Smith and Quin Snyder have talked about the San Antonio Spurs job, and that Quinn was given assurances that if a situation arose where Quinn was asked to replace, a legend in Greg Popovich, one of his clear mentors, Greg Popovich, is a mentor to Quin Snyder.
Yeah.
If he was asked to replace Greg Popovich at the San Antonio Spurs, Ryan Smith has given him certain assurances that he would allow him to do that.
Yeah.
He's not going to allow him to walk away to go to the Lakers. And Jake, I think that's absolutely the right tact for the Utah Jazz to take, because I don't see one of your biggest rivals in the NBA allowing them to get better with the guy that you let go as your head coach.
Yeah, and I think this goes for trading players, head coaching swaps, like any of that. I mean, you're if you're the Utah Jazz, you're at all costs not helping the Lakers. So, it helps that Quinn doesn't value the Laker job. Obviously it wouldn't be ideal if Quinn was all head over heels for the Laker job and you had to say no and that whole situation kind of arose, but that's not what we're talking about.
I think Quinn doesn't value the Laker job as it's currently constituted.
But that's the thing with the Laker job. It doesn't, so that's the thing. And this is, again, I know I keep talking about USC, but this is what we talked about with USC. USC has been a program, the football program at USC to be specific, has been a program that has been crappy the last 8 seasons with everything that they have dealt with. Yet they're still able to land top-tier head coaching talent, which gets them top-tier player talent. So when I'm looking at the Laker job, is it crappy now? Yeah, sure, it's crappy now. Yeah, sure. Russell Westbrook hasn't worked out. Anthony Street Clothes Davis is always hurt. Can't rely on him. LeBron is aging and probably not going to be here in 5 years. You have things that you're dealing with. But that said, it's the Lakers. That said, next year, that could be a completely different situation and you could go and ring chase. So that's why I say.
I don't buy that. I think the dysfunction with the Lakers is far more than the head coach. I think Frank Vogel's actually done a very good job there. I think you sold out to get LeBron James and to keep LeBron James. I think you made a very good trade in the immediate for Anthony Davis, and it won you a championship. I think since they won that championship, just about everything they've done has been a disaster. And I think right now there is questions about who the true leader of that organization is. Kurt Rambis's wife has an enormous influence over Jeannie Buss, the current owner of the Lakers. And apparently Mrs. Rambis has a lot of say about things and a lot of influence about things. There's a lot of thought that LeBron is going to either leave or retire within 2 years. You have an enormous amount of luxury tax being paid. You're going to have to unload Russell Westbrook. I just don't think this is USC where you can hire a guy like Lincoln Riley to come in. You automatically bring on a Heisman Trophy candidate at quarterback, influx of transfer portal talent, influx of coaching talent, influx of recruits, and a really, frankly, pretty shitty Pac-12. And you walk in the front door with him and you're already probably going to be the champion to the Pac-12 next year. It doesn't work that way in the NBA. When you are as dysfunctional as the Lakers have been for the last 2 years, it's very difficult to turn that around. And when you don't have clear and respected leadership, you're going to have much more trouble bringing that around. I think it's why you see Jeannie Buss reaching out to a guy like a Phil Jackson to get consult from other guys outside the organization, because she's not buying into what Rob Pelinka's doing as the general manager there, which means you're probably going to have a general manager change this offseason.
Right.
So you're going to change the GM, you're going to change the head coach. I mean, there's all kinds of dysfunction there.
Yeah.
Whereas you have no ownership questions with the Jazz. You have no ownership questions with the San Antonio Spurs. You have no GM questions in either place. It makes sense for Quin Snyder to leave and go to the Spurs. It does not make sense for Quin Snyder to leave and go to the Lakers, either for the Jazz or for Quin Snyder. And frankly, that's why I don't buy that right now.
Yeah, but I think the Lakers, and I don't disagree that there's a ton of dysfunction with the Lakers, but that's who they are. That's who they've always been. I mean, you go back to, Kobe and Shaq, and you go back to even when it was Magic's team, and you've got the Magic Johnson versus Michael Jordan thing in the Olympics, and then that transfers over to the league. Like there's always, it's LA, man. I mean,
it is LA.
Like that's kind of, I feel like that's just kind of the culture of that portion of the country. And I think that, I agree with the idea that the Lakers have a lot of dysfunction and Quinn's not that guy. I understand that. I respect that. And I agree with it, and I think that Quinn much more values following in Greg Popovich's footsteps. I totally agree with that. But the only thing that I would say about the Laker job is that while all of that is true, right? All the dysfunction and the ownership stuff with Genie and all that stuff you just said, all that is true.
Yeah.
That does not mean that they next year can't go to the NBA Finals.
Well, and let's be honest, and I think that's a really good point. The Lakers, in my opinion, can take a disaster to a championship quicker than just about anybody because they make more money than just about anybody.
Yes.
And when you look at the way that teams like Brooklyn do business, the Lakers are not very different than that.
Because really, if you think about it, how far away are they from being back to a meaningful team in the West?
They're one more solid piece away, and Anthony Davis has to play, 75% of a season.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Anthony Davis is healthy, this is probably a top 6 team in the West right now.
But really, if you think about it, all they need to do to become a more relevant team and to become a serious contender is you got to move Russ and you got to get a player back that can contribute. That's what has to be done.
That's why I say I can't believe they didn't make the Houston John Wall deal.
Yeah, it's surprising.
I mean, it's baffling because he is healthy, he is in shape, he is ready to play, and it would have been John Wall and Eric Gordon, essentially John Wall and Eric Gordon for Russell Westbrook and another player on that roster.
With LeBron. That would have been a great fit.
And those 3 guys with LeBron, whether Anthony Davis comes back or not, that makes them a championship contender in the West.
And that's why I say.
It's shocking they didn't make that deal. But I also think, and again, I think that points at dysfunction and disagreement, but all of that goes away with one swing of the guillotine. I mean, when you change Pelinka, when you change the GM, the coach, you make a huge trade to impact the roster. In LA, you're not that far away. And so when you have a guy like LeBron James that's playing at the level, and that's really the difference between LeBron and the Lakers and pretty much any other mid-table team. The Jazz are a great example. You don't have a LeBron-type player on the Jazz roster.
An anchor.
You don't have that guy. You don't have 2 other guys on your bench that are injured. Who's the impact player like Anthony Davis that's going to come off and get healthy for the playoffs for the Jazz?
There's not.
You don't have that guy.
That's Bogdanovic right now.
So, and my point is, that's your second best player.
Yeah.
Anthony Davis, when he's right, is an MVP caliber player in this
After
league.
the street clothes, Davis.
But he's always in street clothes. But my point is, you saw how good that Laker team was and how quickly they turned that into a championship.
Yeah.
So I understand. I think you're correct about that. It's a very short turnaround where it will be a much longer rebuild cycle for the Jazz or for the Spurs. Look at how long it's taken the Spurs to get back, simply because those teams don't have the TV deal, the radio deal. They don't have the third-tier rights deal. They don't have the memorabilia deals. They don't have the uniform deals.
But I think the trade-off for those teams, though, if you're a head coach, is stability.
Yeah,
and a little bit lower of an expectation. I mean, you're not like, whether it's Quinn or somebody else, whoever winds up replacing Pop, the expectation isn't that you're going to walk in there and win a championship your first year. I mean, hell, look at Taylor Jenkins in Memphis. I mean, look at that situation. That's been a slow burn for like 3-4 years, where he's been building this team and slowly but surely getting better. And now they're a 2 seed or whatever they are. And, so that's what I'm talking about. Like, again, for Quinn, I think that he wants to prioritize stability and really, developing players. That's what I think Quin Snyder loves to do. I think he loves to work with players and develop guys, even for all the shortcomings that we talk about with Butler not getting minutes and the rotations and all that good stuff. I think that Quin Snyder likes situations where he can come in and not have to deal with the LeBron-esque player. He wants to deal with guys like Don, or like a Ja Morant type guy who hasn't quite got to LeBron's level yet, but has work to do. And that's why I think the Jazz and the Spurs are attractive positions.
Yeah, yeah, it's a philosophical thing.
It totally is. It totally is. And like you said, I mean, it really just comes down to what you value. And that's why I say, like, Frank Vogel knew what he was signing up for.
Yes,
You
he
knew
did.
what you were signing up
He
for.
did.
You knew that you had to win a championship, but as soon as it went south, you were probably going to get gutted. And that's what I mean about the Laker job. And I know we're going around here, but the takeaway here is the Laker job is highly volatile. It is, hey, I can win a championship. I've got access to the college football playoff, but damn if I suck, I'm getting fired, right? Like, it's the same concept. I have access to the NBA Finals, but if I'm not good, if I do a bad job, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
So it just is what it is.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that I just don't see how. I just don't see how you hire a coach the caliber of Quin Snyder. And I know that we've had this conversation repeatedly about Quin Snyder. I just don't know how you replace a guy like Quin Snyder. I really don't. And I don't know how you fix what ails Quin Snyder or what ails the Jazz that would make them part company. I don't know how you fix that. So it is what it is. I don't think that it is assured that Quinn will be brought back as the coach of the Jazz. I think if the Jazz were to part ways with him, he'd have multiple job offers.
Yeah.
I don't think Quin Snyder's looking for just any job in the league. I really don't. That's why I say I think the Jazz, I was told yesterday the Jazz have not had conversations about terminating Quinn, firing Quin Snyder. I was told yesterday that they will reevaluate everything in the offseason as they always do. But I'd be surprised if he wasn't the coach of the Jazz next year, no matter who the players are.
Well, and I think if you just look at the situation and you're realistic about it, what does that really mean? We're going to reevaluate everything? Well, what that means is that we're going to make moves. We're going to rebuild this roster. And then based on those moves, we're going to figure out if Quinn is a fit. And we're going to talk to him about it. I mean, and that's the thing I think that's so, not to wax poetic, but I think that's what's great about the culture of the Jazz and that front office is that it's not just like, hey, we're just going to make a decision and that's what it is. Like, I think what would take place, and this is opinion, right? Obviously, I'm not in there, but based on what I've seen and their actions, it seems like what would happen is they would make some moves, update or change this roster, and then you're going to talk to Quinn and you're going to say, hey, man, what do you think about these moves? How would you do this? How would you do that? Would you play this guy? Would you play that guy? Like, those are conversations that are had between Justin Zanuck and Danny Ainge and, Ryan Smith to Quin Snyder. There's got to be, I hope people understand, like, the relationship between your head coach and the front office has to be healthy for you to be successful. It has to be, because if it's not, and Quinn has a different strategy than the front office does, it's like, the front office is buying a Ferrari, and Quinn's putting, 87 low octane in it, it doesn't work, So that's why I say when they talk about reevaluating, that's what that looks like.
By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, yes, YouTube is having some service issues this morning. This is not related to us, and we have no control over it.
Hell out of your
yeah, we
like, what does that even mean? Service issues?
I don't know. We one of the things I noticed is that YouTube is struggling to stay online this morning, and looking at reports online, they're having service issues on the West Coast. I don't know if we're getting comments, but I see our concurrent viewer numbers and all that stuff are on and off, and so it's a YouTube issue. It is not a Monty Show issue.
It's not the internet.
Yeah, it's not the internet. And I apologize. And I do see some comments. Eric C saying it's offline. Whoa, it just started out of nowhere. Yeah, YouTube is having issues this morning, so I apologize for every subscriber. Okay. Let's clarify the PS5 thing too, because Joe Al says, are you giving away a PS5 to everyone that subscribes to the channel?
No.
What do you think, Joel? Joel, what do you think the odds that we're going to give away 5,000 PS5s on this channel are?
Donnie, please.
I mean, just logically speaking. So he says, are you giving away a PS5 to everybody on this channel?
No. Duh.
No, we're not. We're giving away one. when we get to 5,000. It's right here on the table.
It's right here, bro. It's right here. We got it. It's right here in the box. This thing's a unit. It's heavy. And yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're here right now, give us a thumbs up and a like. If you're listening on the audio podcast, bless you. We've had another massive week. Thank you for that. Speaking of the Utah Jazz, let's get into the Boston Celtics and the Utah Jazz tonight, 5:30 Mountain Time in Boston, who I think is right now the best team in the Eastern Conference as far as how they're playing on the floor. I guess the question that a lot of people ask is, how good are the Boston Celtics? And Jake, do you believe that they can win the Eastern Conference Championship?
I have some reservations on whether they can win the Eastern Conference Championship. I think there are several teams that, obviously are going to have something to say about that. And mainly my biggest concern is Giannis. I don't think that they have an answer for Giannis. I don't think that they have somebody who can make his life difficult. You've got this same core of guys that you've had for, what seems like forever in Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart.
Has anybody else ever played for the?
I don't think
Boston
so.
Celtics?
I literally think it's been those three guys for like the entire eternity. I don't think
believe that Larry Bird ever played for the Celtics.
I think that Larry Bird was actually a Laker, and we just misremember. So
I think Bob Cousy was like the moon landing. It was done in a studio, and it never really happened.
It never really happened.
It does feel like Tatum and Brown have been together for forever, man.
And that's why I say, like, I think that the thing in the East is very simple. The Milwaukee Bucks are going to be the team that decides the East every year until Giannis is not playing anymore. So to me, the key to open that lock and get to the NBA Finals through Milwaukee is okay. We have to limit Giannis on some level.
I'm sorry. Did you say Milwaukee?
Yeah, Milwaukee.
Milwaukee? Oh, you mean Milwaukee? Okay,
Milwaukee.
That's a city in Shittown, Wisconsin.
Yeah, in Nowhereville that nobody cares about, right?
Milwaukee. How very northern Illinois of you.
Yeah. So, I think that the question is not how you stop Giannis. The question is, how do you stop, Chris Middleton? How do you stop, Holiday?
Yeah.
How do you stop these guys from, because Giannis is going to have 30 or 40.
But we're playing the Celtics tonight, so I don't know why we're talking about the Bucks.
No, but here's why we're talking about the Bucks, dude. Fuck, man.
I understand what you're saying.
Like, you're asking me if they can win the Eastern Conference.
I think they can. I
don't think they can. I don't think that they're capable of beating the Bucks.
I think bringing Daniel Tice back was a big deal because it gives you more fouls off the bench, and I think, much to your point, Chris Middleton's a really good one. Because who's going to guard Chris Middleton?
Yeah, he tortures them.
Yeah, Jason Tatum's the guy that's got to step up. To your point, I think that's a great question. And when I look at the teams in the East, I think Philly's really good, but I don't trust Philly.
No, I don't trust James Harden. I don't think James Harden's a winner. I don't think that James Harden shows up when you need him most. Like again, look no further than what he did against the Warriors. I haven't forgotten. You went 0 of 27, dude. 0 of 27
wow.
in a playoff game.
You're hanging on to that.
Yeah, because it tells me exactly who you are, right? It tells me precisely who you are.
Yeah.
0 of 27 for a guy who's a max player, allegedly. So tonight, when I look at the Celtics versus the Jazz, I pose the same question, right? Who's going to stop Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown tonight? Because I'm telling you, Jason Tatum will eat Royce O'Neal alive. He will.
The guy you're going to miss tonight is Danuel House. I think you're going to miss that perimeter defense that he's able to bring, because to beat the Celtics, and I don't know how you feel about this, but to beat the Celtics, you have to limit one of those two guys, and you can't buy into the chippiness. You can't buy into everything else that's not basketball that Marcus Smart brings, that Williams brings, that their role players can really be chippy and physical. And the other guy, like I look at an Al Horford, that's the guy that hits a dagger 3 on you because you're so concerned about everything else that's going on.
But think about that matchup, right? Think about the matchups here. And this is what has me concerned about this game tonight. Not that the Jazz are some, inferior team, but if you just go up and down the matchups, the thing that concerns me is Marcus Smart is a very physical defender, and he will guard Donovan Mitchell.
Yes.
So Don's going to have a difficult night. Like, I think Don will still have 20 to 25, But I'd be real surprised if this was a 40-point night for Donovan Mitchell. Maybe I'm wrong, right? But that's my opinion, number one. Number two, who's going to slow down Jason Tatum? Is Jason Tatum going to put up 40 tonight? Because if that happens, this won't be close. He needs to be in the 20 to 25-point range as well. And then thirdly, the Al Horford situation with Rudy is going to be really interesting, because if Horford is putting up, again, another guy doing 20 to 25, this won't be close.
Well, and they really like playing Robert Williams at the 5 and Al Horford at the 4. I mean, they both start at I mean, obviously they're both have been career centers.
Yeah.
But Horford shoots the ball well enough, and this is again where you miss a guy like Bojan Bogdanovic tonight, because Bogdanovic can play with Al Horford. And I think it's very interesting to see, how does Rudy Gobert hang with Robert Williams? How does Robert Williams hang with Rudy Gobert?
Yeah.
I think Williams has played very well for them. But I'll go back to the Nuggets game, 10 days ago. You can't have Tatum and Brown score 30, and you can't give up 17. Yeah, you can't have Pritchard come off the bench for 17. And having watched most of that game, they didn't require their bigs to do anything, because they ran up and down the floor and they shot the 3 really well.
Yeah.
And you can't allow the Celtics to do that, especially at home, because now that crowd is really into it. They're 9-1 in their last 10.
Yeah.
And they are playing an exceptional level of basketball. And I actually think, we're going to talk about the MVP here in a minute, I don't know how Jason Tatum's not in that conversation.
Yeah.
Because he's playing at an incredibly high level. And the thing that worries you is the Jazz are not healthy. The Jazz do not have Bojan tonight. They're not going to have Danuel House tonight.
Does Jordan Clarkson show up?
That's a great question. He's going to have to, because I think that this Boston team is very good defensively. I like the way they play defense. I say this all the time, even when we play basketball. I play defense with my shoulders and my knees. And I love that Boston does that too. I wish the Jazz would do that more. But the Jazz want to play quick and stay in front of you, and they're not quick and they can't stay in front of you. Whereas Boston plays to their strength, which is their bigs in the middle are going to bang you. And if you look at guys like Smart, Horford, Tatum, Jaylen Brown is a little less of this.
He's that firecracker, though. Jaylen Brown is their Jordan Clarkson in the sense that he is a starter for them, obviously. But some nights it's 15 points, other nights it's 35.
And
who's that going to be?
But you look at Derek White. And looking at Derek White's last 10 games since he got to Boston, he's played 26 minutes a night. He gives you about 10 points, but he's a great defender, and he can move the basketball.
Yeah.
The thing that worries me for the Jazz tonight, and I do think the Celtics are going to win this game, the thing that worries me for the Jazz, you're coming off of 4 games in 5 nights. You get 1 night of rest after you lose to Brooklyn when you looked out of gas. Don's clearly dealing with whatever this wrist injury is off the dunk the other night in New York. And I think you're just probably feeling a little heavier legs tonight versus a team that, frankly, is very athletic.
And they're hot right now.
And they're smoking hot right now.
Yeah.
They are glowingly hot.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Tanner Plummer says, I don't see the Jazz winning tonight. Gene Streamer Gamer says Boston has its inconsistencies. If the Jazz start hot, it may give a huge blow to Boston in the first half. That could be, because I agree with you. I think that when the Celtics are playing like this, they're very difficult to beat. What's going to happen to get them out of playing like this? And are the Jazz capable of doing that?
You can't have tonight. You can't have the mental mistakes. You can't have the turnovers. You can't have the brutal possession where Don's just taking a 30-footer. You can't have when you play these good teams, and we've talked about this, but when you play these good teams, you have to have really disciplined offensive possessions to get good open looks for your guys who are shooting. So like Mike Conley, does Mike Conley give us 4 to 5 threes tonight like he has been? Or is this a 1-3 and 11-point performance like we see when he's off? So that's why I say, for the Jazz, they can beat this team. They are capable of beating the Celtics. There's no doubt. But Rudy has to show up. Mike Conley's got to show up. It can't just be Don trying to do everything on his own. These guys have to step up. And Jordan Clarkson, I'm telling you, he is the X factor. No matter what those guys do, if Jordan goes for 40, they're in this game.
Avlee says, morning, guys. Did Don get the MVP already? Wink.
Nope.
Not yet.
Nope.
Not yet. It is what it is. Greg Hawkins was asked by Jeremy Bolton how the movie shoot was going. And it's been, Greg, I'll tell you, I appreciate how much you share on Instagram. It was fun watching you go through that process of shooting these movies that you were in.
Mm-hmm.
That's been pretty cool, man. So good on you. He says, finished it up. Tough shoot, but a good one. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it was really fun to watch. And if you don't follow Greg, and I think it's the real Greg Hawkins on Instagram, you guys should follow Greg. I mean, he's a daily listener of the show, and he actually lives kind of a rock star life. He is, it's real Greg Hawkins.
I'm for real.
He's even got Greg Hawkins has the blue check mark.
Whoa.
Hey now.
Wow.
Wow.
Dude,
I told you.
You're for real.
He's a big deal. That's a guy you just want to be around.
Yeah.
So that you can catch what he casts back into the ocean. The fish he throws back.
He's a brilliant guy.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Blue check mark.
A lot of comments on Quinn. It's Quinn's fault to play Hernan Gomez 25 minutes and 8 to Pascal. Amen to that. And again, we've kind of sworn off of talking about Quinn's rotations on this show. But yeah, I mean, Quinn has his flaws. No coach is perfect. Phil Jackson certainly wasn't a perfect coach, but he's the winningest coach in the history of the NBA championship-wise. I mean, let's not forget that not every coach is perfect. Chris Karn says, got my BYU season football tickets yesterday. Can we start football now? I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
I saw so many people talking about how they got their season tickets. So many people talking about how all the youth camps at BYU are sold out and how frustrated parents are that their kids didn't get in and they're on the wait list. And
yeah,
I'm telling you, BYU is hot right now. BYU is hot. And then there's the Utes, open first day of spring ball yesterday. And I think they're making a huge mistake. By the way, I'm glad this came up. The Utah Utes are making a huge mistake closing their practices. It is a huge, huge mistake. Whereas you have BYU with kids on the field, they have fan days, practices are open, you get to be around the guys, you get to be around Kalani, The Utah Utes are coming off of a Rose Bowl appearance. The fan sentiment has probably never been higher. And you're shutting the door on it. And I think it's a huge mistake. Huge mistake. Brandon Whiteside says Quinn wouldn't be winning more in LA. The Lakers are a mess. Just like Don getting to the Knicks for what? To lose? Come on. Reputation only gets you so far. But you have to understand about Donovan in New York. And Brandon, I think we've talked about this. Donovan is a New Yorker. He is
going
from
to be
New
a
York.
Knick.
He's going to play for the Knicks.
Yeah.
Donovan, and I think Jazz fans get all upset about this. How can you fault Donovan Mitchell for wanting to go to his hometown, where being a Knick and playing at the Garden every night is the realization of a lifelong dream? Whether you win or lose is almost secondary. Can you imagine? And I guarantee you, Donovan Mitchell believes if he goes to the Knicks, he can help them win a championship.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that. On his own, he probably cannot. But can you imagine Donovan Mitchell winning a championship wearing a Knick uniform at the Garden? What would that mean to him? What would that do to his life? What would that do to his family? What would that do for Knick fans? Furthermore, what would a native New Yorker coming to the Knicks, winning a championship, mean to kids who play basketball on the playgrounds and the blacktops in New York?
Yeah.
Think about the impact that would have. I mean,
yeah,
you want to talk about massive.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing you said there is it's a realization of a childhood dream. Again, you can be all pissed about it, but if I was him, I would do the same thing.
And it doesn't always work out. Look at Russell Westbrook going back to the Lakers.
Yeah,
he's a UCLA guy. It's very difficult to win in your hometown.
Well, and you look at D Wade to the Bulls. You look at DeMar hasn't been able to come back to LA yet, but these guys, I'm telling you, being able again, look no further than LeBron James. LeBron James, Akron kid. Able to live that story, able to win a championship. Remember him yelling Cleveland when he won that title finally. That's what these guys want to do. And if you're going to be pissed about that, then that's your prerogative. But I'm just telling you, man, we would all do the same thing.
Yeah.
We would. No
question about it. Let's see. Kieran? Okay. Love you. Kieran says, I'm watching you guys on my TV today. It works just fine. Stop the haters. By the way, Quin Snyder sucks. Okay. I mean,
Thank you for watching. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, the depths of that take are amazing. Do people really watch this show on TVs? That would be amazing to
Yeah, that'd
watch
be cool.
ourselves
Send
on
it.
TV.
You know what you could do? You know what you could do? What would be amazing if you can is take a picture of your TV setup and tweet it at us. We'd love to see it.
That would be awesome. Yeah. I think that Quin Snyder is one of the most controversial figures in Jazz land right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I just think people are both ways on it. Cool J, so cool JR. CJ, so cool JR says, let him go. I'm so tired of his lack of adjustments. How do you let Royce, who is 6'3", guard KD 1v1? Dallas doubles him for 48 minutes, beat them so Quinn don't watch film at all. But so your longest player is probably who? Bojan Bogdanovic wasn't available. Your best defender is probably Danuel House, not available. I don't blame Quin Snyder for Kevin Durant going Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Because Kevin Durant's pretty damn good.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Let's see. Tanner Plummer says, every coach isn't perfect, quote unquote. LOL, Monty, what are you smoking? Current Eagles coach Nick Sirianni is perfect. That's my guy right there. Way to go. Way to go, Tanner. Live the brand of the Eagle fan.
Uh-huh.
Do it. For as awesome as Donovan is, no way he's winning a championship at the Knicks. It's not Donnie, but the organization is awful. I don't even think LeCarron could change the culture there. Well, I mean, Alex Caruso could.
Obviously, his headband holds power. Obviously.
Had to, Jeremy. Gene, you're not wrong. I mean, the culture of the Knicks has been trashed for how long?
Yeah, but it's still the Knicks.
If Don will be going to the Knicks, is there any possibility that Gobert will be out too? Gene's stream says no. I think Donovan's not going to the Knicks in the next 5 years. I just don't believe it.
No.
I think they are going to make every attempt to trade Rudy Gobert this summer, and I think they're going to build this team around Donovan Mitchell. Talked about that with a Jazz guy yesterday. That everybody was so concerned about what was going on with Don in New York, and there was nothing going on with Don in New York. He was at home at the Garden playing in front of his friends and family.
Yeah.
And he went off, and I say I'm proud of him. I'm happy for him.
And this summer, you're going to see him in a Mets uni, throwing out the first pitch again. It's going to happen, and don't have anxiety about it. I'm just telling you, like, he's going to be a Knick before his career's over, but it's not right now. I mean, right now, his mindset is winning championships, and that's what it should be. He's entering his prime right now. So, you know, when he gets into his middle 30s, yeah, maybe he'll go and be a Knick, you know, but not right now.
Yeah, and that's why I say I understand that Jazz fans are frustrated, and I think when you go out of the playoffs, that frustration is going to grow. But be frustrated if you don't. If we get to September 1st and significant foundational changes on this roster have not been made.
Yeah,
that's when you get frustrated, because the core of this team, you know, Rudy, Bojan, you know, Royce O'Neal, those guys have been here forever.
Jordan Clarkson.
You know, like, but I put Jordan and Don in a different category. I would absolutely trade Jordan Clarkson tomorrow. If it brought me real value and real draft stock and real talent, I would do it. But if Jordan Clarkson's on your roster and he and Don really are the only two guys that are here, and there's a bunch of other dudes, you're in great shape.
Yeah.
I mean, Jordan Clarkson is not by far your biggest issue. He's not. Does he need to improve? Absolutely. Does he need to be a better defender? Yes. Does he need to learn how to finish in the paint? Yes. But the guy can shoot the three, and he's instant offense, and you need that. There's value in that in this league.
Yeah.
He's not your biggest problem by any stretch. Jordan Clarkson is a very good basketball player when he stays within his lane. When he plays his role, he's a very good player. Jeremy Bolton says, if Donnie wins a chip here in Utah, he can go wherever the hell he wants. After that, also MJ or Caruso should be a Knick. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely. Yes, definitely Mark Jackson could be a huge upgrade over Quinn. Stop.
Yeah, that's not a good. That's just not.
Stop it.
No.
The personal side of Mark Jackson is not a huge upgrade over Quin Snyder.
No.
All right, NBA MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Right now today, who is it?
Joel.
Even with the way that they're struggling.
Yeah. Because I think people view it as two different seasons. I think people view it as pre-James Harden, post-James Harden. And I think that people are unwilling to take Joel Embiid and punish him for James Harden's, frankly, lack of performance. You know, it's so painfully obvious when you watch the Sixers that James Harden just takes possessions away and wastes possessions. And I think that's the struggle. Now, The Jokic crowd, I understand your case. I get it, but I think it's hard to win multiple MVPs back to back like that,
Yeah.
especially in this league. And so my feeling is Giannis is obviously always going to be there. But I think the guy, and I think what's so fascinating about this situation is Devin Booker's finally starting to get some run. And I don't just mean on NBCSports.com or the NBA Power Rankings. I'm talking about in NBA circles, in the fan base, and like with people on Twitter. You're seeing it a lot more, and I
Yeah.
think it's deserving. He is putting up numbers. And I think that they've been a good team even without Chris Paul. And I wouldn't be. They're a better team this year than they were last year. And I wouldn't be surprised if they went right back to the NBA Finals again.
I think with the struggles that we've seen the Sixers endure here recently, I think it's absolutely torpedoed Joel's ability to win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
If it was to end today, I think I would probably lean towards Jokic. I mean, with the injuries that they've sustained, he has been. I mean, Jokic right now he's shooting 34% from three, 64% from two. He's picking up 13 and a half rebounds a game, 8 dimes, a steal and a half, a block a game, averaging 26 points a game. I mean, his numbers without arguably their 2 best players behind him, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, with no Jamal Murray, I mean, Monte Morris is a really nice fit, but who are we kidding? Like, he has been unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he would win it. I think number 2, I don't know. I think it's got to be Giannis at this point over Joel. I mean, but the problem that I have with Giannis versus Joel is that I think Giannis has Chris Middleton.
Mm-hmm.
And, Giannis has a lot of really good role players on that team. I mean, the emergence of Bobby Portis over the last 2 years, you look at what they're getting back in Bropez. I mean, he's got a lot more talent on that roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, and Holiday too. Holiday's been a key contributor.
Oh yeah, how do I leave him out of that? But then again, I look at Joel and he's got Maxey that nobody talks about. But I think James Harden has absolutely been garbage.
I think Giannis definitely has more help. There's no doubt. I mean, Giannis has 3-4 guys who are established in the league.
I guess it's just which way do you look at that? And I also think you look at the other names on that list. I mean, Luka Doncic now has to be top 5 MVP candidates. I mean, he has absolutely held on to that team. They went and got Spencer Dinwiddie, who, again, the flippin' Jazz could have had an opportunity to get Spencer Dinwiddie and passed.
Yeah, and he's just
huge
hitting game winners.
I think Luka's got to be there. I don't know, Jason Tatum or Devin Booker for MVP. I look at
Booker right now.
I look at Book, and I see a guy that without their most important player in Chris Paul, this team is not sank at all.
Mm-hmm.
They have barely struggled, and Devin Booker has been phenomenal. And you look at his ability to impact the game, they're very wise in not having him bring the ball up consistently. But they give him the ball as soon as he gets over the half-court stripe. And I love the way he's integrated DeAndre Ayton into the Suns' offense. I love the way that he has consistently given Cam Johnson open looks with the way that he has passed the basketball. And then his mid-range game is, I think he's arguably the best mid-range player in the NBA right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them now. I mean, there's probably 5, 6 really elite mid-range players.
I think Chris Paul, DeMar,
LeBron James, DeMar DeRozan,
KD.
I think KD's probably the second best mid-range player. I think Devin Booker is very close to Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
they're 1 and 1A in my opinion, and that's how good. It's crazy to hear that out loud. That's how good Devin Booker is in the mid-range.
Yeah,
I think he should be. He won't be top 5. And I think because he plays in Boston and he has been unfreaking believable lately, Jason Tatum will finish ahead of Devin Booker in the MVP race.
I saw the crazy thing I saw on Twitter the other day is Phoenix is the 3rd largest market in the country.
Isn't that nutty?
Like, it's wild. Like, you think of Phoenix and you're like, oh, well, that's just some small town. It's the Suns. They're out there in good old Arizona. No, dude, this is the 3rd largest metropolitan area in the country. So it's the whole little brother, he plays in Phoenix thing is no longer the case. Like, it's a major market.
Yeah, I think it is interesting. We'll see.
If I had to vote right now, the last thing I'll say is if I had to vote right now, I think the only thing that helps Joel's case is that he was clearly the front runner before James Harden
Head
got there.
and shoulders.
Like, not close,
Yeah.
MVP,
Yes.
like, clearly. So I'm just going to be really curious to see, like, how that plays out. Are people going to say, well, yeah, that was then, this is now? Or are they going to say, well, James Harden has been a complete bust for multiple organizations, and we're not going to penalize Joel for that?
But why won't he win it? Because of the vernal equinox.
Yeah, dude. The vernal equinox. Wow.
I
It's
said,
the fucking vernal equinox.
thank you. The drop machine works. I wasn't sure. I know YouTube's having some bugs today, so I was
Yeah.
just trying to make sure that the,
Yeah.
the drop machine
Fucking
works.
A.
Bolton said, wait. Guys.
Hey, guys.
Did I just hear Mark Jackson would be an upgrade over Quin Snyder?
Dude, it's
You did.
embarrassing.
Yeah, and I
It's
glossed
so,
over it.
It's so embarrassing.
Because I don't want to talk about affairs and blackmail scandals off, you know.